And welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Myers now joined by the head coach of the Ligonier Valley Rams, Roger Beitel. His team coming off of an impressive victory against Waynesburg Central. Roger, thanks for taking the time to do this, and we're glad to talk to you because certainly Ligonier Valley has had a very interesting season. And one thing that I think everyone noted that you made mention of in a tweet was that you've played 6 games now in 6 different counties. I would speculate that maybe has never been done in Western Pennsylvania football history. Just talk about the roller coaster ride that this season has been, your first in the WPIAL.
Well, first, Sean, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our team today. You know, in relationship to the opportunity for us to play in 6 different counties, it's just one of those things. You know, we wanted to play football. With COVID and all the craziness that went on this season, we had to find games. And it didn't matter where they were. We were going to go and give our kids an opportunity to play. And traveling to the WPIAL and being the first season for our competition in so many years, we kind of see it as a great opportunity. I mean, the opportunity, we've almost played a school that represented almost every conference in AA. So for us, we see this as a great learning opportunity for us as we continue to grow and you know, we see our future in the WPIAL. It gives us an understanding of what's out there and in terms of where we need to get to with our program to be able to compete with the elite teams.
I think people who maybe haven't followed your team that closely this year, they maybe just looked at the scores and saw, especially week 1, a lopsided loss against Apollo Ridge, and thought maybe it's just a case of Ligonier Valley stepping up in competition. But that is sort of coincided with the fact that you are replacing a massive senior class that moved on and have just one senior and a much smaller roster overall. So how has the transition gone to new competition while also breaking in players who didn't have maybe a ton of starting experience?
Well, the first thing in terms of the question is when we made the decision to come to the WPIAL, we're a small school, so we knew that you're going to go in cycles, and just, you know, unfortunately for us, you know, there were a lot of naysayers out there that had opinions in regards to, you know, whether we could compete and had things to say about our dominance in District 6 and so on and so forth. But that had nothing to do with anything other than the fact that during that time period, we were just blessed with great players. We were blessed with great depth. I mean, from 2010 until this season, our roster hovered between 50 and 60 players for a 2A school almost every year. And that's uncommon. That's not a common thing. And so we knew that we were going to be cycling down, and it wasn't something that just suddenly came. I mean, traditionally, throughout the history of football in the Valley, we knew that our current senior class was a class that traditionally hadn't been football players. They participate in other sports. And so we were a little bit surprised, you know, over the years that we lost some kids back and forth, and that we only have one senior this year. And that our numbers are low. We didn't have any freshmen that came out this season. We only had 5. 3 of them moved out of the district. 1 didn't play over COVID concerns, and 1 was a first-year player that said, you know, football wasn't for him. So we knew that those numbers were going to dip. But again, moving back, I couldn't be more proud of the fact that with a low roster numbers and with 31 really, really great kids, we've been actually able to prove that we've been competitive. Apollo Ridge, as it turns out, is one of the best teams in the WPIAL and 2A. I really expect them to really go far in the playoffs. And we were 10-3 with them early in the first quarter, and then, you know, the wheels fell off in the second quarter. Western Beaver is a team that only has 1 loss. And we had them 3-0 through 3 quarters, and in the fourth quarter they made two outstanding plays, and that set the final. And Sarah, they're also undefeated. They played 4 games. We had them. It was 7-7 at halftime against them, and then, you know, we had some self-inflicted wounds in the second half, and they onside kicked twice against us with the mercy rule in effect, and set that score, you know, a little bit more lopsided than it was. So when you look at our very young football team, coming in, we don't call them young anymore because they have all these games under their belt. Our 3 losses were to 3 teams that have a combined 1 loss this season. So, and we've been competitive in all those games. Some of the scores might not show that, but we have been. And as we come in, and I've been asked by numerous different sources, about the level of competition in District 6 and so on and so forth. I think one of the things that we have an advantage over is the fact that we know what good looks like. Not only did we do very well in the Heritage Conference in District 6, but we've also been basically in 3 out of those last 5 years, we've been in the state playoffs and getting as far as being one of 4 teams remaining in Pennsylvania. So we've seen the elite of the elite, and we've seen great football teams so far this season. It's just a matter of what we were dealt with. A lot of adversity with our football team. Having 1 senior is tough. Having low numbers is tougher. And then we also had to replace within our staff both a new offensive and defensive coordinator this season. And I can honestly say that this is one of the finest jobs that our coaching staff has done in my 17 years with the kids that we have and all the different things that we've had to deal with in terms of COVID and not having all those reps, et cetera. So I'm extremely proud of our kids and our coaches.
Talking to Roger Beitel, the head coach of the Ligonier Valley Rams here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. And you had mentioned some of the teams that defeated you, but most recently a lopsided victory in your favor, 42-6 at Waynesburg Central. And a lot of these players, you said, well, they're not young anymore, one of which is your quarterback, Haydens. Seems like he's really developed and come of age. What have you seen from him over the past handful of games?
Well, every week with him, he just keeps getting better. And that's one of the things that's just going to come with reps. And one of the things that's interesting about Hayden to understand is that he didn't play football till he was in 8th grade. So that's remarkable. And he wasn't a quarterback until last year when we moved him. We saw that he's an outstanding athlete. We saw that he's extremely coachable and has great sense when it comes to sports. And we said to him, Hayden, we think you would do well if we moved you to quarterback. And he said, okay. And, the fact, Sean, that he didn't get spring ball, he didn't get those thousands of reps in the summertime with 7-on-7s. And basically the very first time that the young man was throwing a live ball against live competition was whenever we were able to get to HEDAC. And that's tremendous. And again, he's learning the offense, and he's only a sophomore. And like I told him in his first game against Apollo Ridge, he was upset. He had a turnover, and he threw 2 interceptions and things like that. And I said to him, well, the last time we started a sophomore quarterback was 2014. His first game as a starting quarterback as a sophomore, he threw 5 interceptions in a loss to Northern Cambria that we lost the game 21-16. He said, Colin Smith. And I said, you're right. So in comparison, his career came out pretty well. And so, he's just got to keep that in perspective. And we're young. Not only is he young, but our offensive line is really young. And time gives people opportunities to make plays. And we haven't always had as much time as we'd hoped this season, but we're definitely getting better.
And Roger, you have one more game remaining in the regular season slate. It is a rare home game, just the second time at home, and you will be hosting Shadyside Academy. With your team at 3-3, it's a chance to have a winning record overall on the season. How much would that mean to you?
Well, it would mean a lot, because not only would we have a winning season, but these kids would have an opportunity to set a new standard and break a record. In Ligonier Valley High School history, there's been a non-losing streak that's existed 3 times in the history of the school of 5 consecutive seasons. Back in the 1980s with J.D. Jones, he did that once, and then I've done it twice. And these kids could have a chance to break that record and set it at 6, which I think would be something that really would be a good launching point for us going into the off season. Because basically we're going to be returning 21 starters on offense and defense next year. So, for these kids to get that opportunity to go 4-3, finally play home, get a home game, I think would give us a lot of momentum heading into the off season, for sure. And for them, in this crazy COVID year, when there's very few things that in terms of records and things like that can really be established because of condensed seasons and games, etc. I think it would just be a remarkable accomplishment for our kids. But it's one of those things. Even with the 3 wins, I couldn't be more proud of this group, considering all the things that we had to deal with above and beyond what normal COVID restrictions other teams are dealing with as well.
Roger, as always, a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time, and good luck heading into the final regular season game.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks for having me.
That's Roger Beitel of the Ligonier Valley Rams. We'll take a break and continue with more on the Westmoreland Sports Network's Westmoreland on the Gridiron.